Alrighty, I'm back with another video. Today I figured I would go over the 10 things that I wish that I had known when I had first started playing Unison League. So the first thing is not to fall into the monster trap. A lot of people fall into the trap of wanting to spawn every single monster. They go for every single new monster when they come out, and they basically don't have any gems left for their gear. Especially as a new player, you don't really need that many pieces of, or that many monsters. You only really need 2 good monsters that do different things. I'll at some point make a video on what makes a monster good, but there are a lot of things. Generally though, you want them to do different things. So this one gives me crit ability power, a special thing called critical assistant, and I'll select this one, this Valk. This one gives me plus 180 buff elevation, which makes my attack procs go off more often. Triple proc on attacks with absolute. And so these 2 monsters do different things. And as a new player, you don't need a super wide monster box. You don't need all of the monsters that I have, or even more, because there's a lot of monsters that I didn't get. Generally speaking, you only need a huge monster box when you are attempting extremely difficult quests that you shouldn't be worried about when you're first starting out in Unison League. So don't fall into the monster trap where you're spending all of your gems on monsters, because you do need good weapons and good armors. And the best weapons and armors will cost the same as some of the best monsters. So you have to keep that in mind. Don't fall into the monster trap. You only need 2 good monsters. The second thing is infusion gems. I wish I had known how to correctly infuse my gear. And I made a whole video on how to correctly infuse gear, but just as a quick introduction, you want to do this, where you infuse one piece of gear 3 times, another piece of gear 1 time that is the same type. So if it has to be a lance or a scythe in this case, and they have to be the same cost, so both 39 in this case. And then you want to infuse 1 piece of gear into the other piece of gear and do a perfect infusion in order to save infusion gems. Infusion gems are the most valuable resource in the game, so don't waste them. The third thing is wasting gems respawning. So when you do a quest, it has a cost, an AP cost associated with it. For example, this one would cost me 50 AP to do this quest. And if I die in this quest, it gives me an option to respawn, and it costs a gem. If I spend gem to respawn, that is a huge waste in my gems, because I could also spend that exact same gem in order to refill my AP. Like let's say that I was completely out of AP and I wanted to do this quest again. I can spend a gem to get back to 319 ability, 319 AP, so that I can spend more AP doing the quest. So I could respawn on this quest, or I could attempt this quest 6 more times with that same gem. So it's never worth respawning. Please stop wasting your gems respawning. And at the end of quests, it'll occasionally ask you, do you want to spend 3 gems to get all of them, all the chests? Never do that either. There are some very few occasions where you would want to do that, but as a new player, don't worry about that. Just avoid that. And honestly, as a new player, you shouldn't be spending gems on anything besides spawns. So the thing I wish that I knew when I first started playing, the fourth thing is how spawns work. So this spawn here, this is a Christmas spawn. Spawns on average cost between 600 and 700 gems. So you shouldn't even start spawning until you've already used a spawn calculator, talk to some people, especially more established people who have been playing the game for a while, about whether or not it's even a good spawn. And then once you know that you have the sufficient amount of gems, spend them on the spawn. Now the spawn will never come back in its original form. It may come back in a very, very similar form, but for example, like this new gear that just came out today, this gear will never come back in this exact spawn, ever. And if it comes back in a similar spawn, it'll come out between 6 months and a year from now. So you have to keep that in mind, that you should always have a good bank of gems ready as an emergency reserve in case some brand new gear comes out that is extremely valuable, that you really, really need. And instead of having to spend money in order to guarantee this gear, keeping around 600 to 700 gems guarantees that you will always have a reserve of gems that should be able to cover any new spawns that could just pop up. So understanding how spawning works is one thing that I wish that I had known. I've wasted a lot of gems on spawns, but generally you want to be spawning the newest thing. And especially as a new player, talk to people who are in the community, join Discords, reach out to people and make sure that it's a good spawn, and use spawn calculators to make sure that you have enough before you even start. Yeah. So the fifth thing that I wish that I had known are about collaborations. I know that there is a free Ren collaboration coming out sometime this year. And there was just a Konosuba collaboration. I might still be able to find notices on that. But the basic information is that the gear from collabs are generally bad. But the monsters from collabs are generally extremely good and extremely rare, because these collab monsters will never come back. Just assume that any collaboration will never come back. And if they do come back, it'll probably be a few years from now. So you don't want to go into a collaboration and not attempt or be able to attempt to get some of those monsters, because the monsters are generally extremely good, they're extremely powerful, and they'll basically never come back. So collaborations, super, super valuable, fun times. That feeds back into the last point, which is make sure you have about 600 to 700 emergency gems just in case something amazing drops that you absolutely need. All right. Tip 6 that I wish that I had known is how valuable Zenos gear is. Zenos gear is the most valuable gear in the entire game. These pieces right here are the most valuable pieces in the entire game, and that is because they increase the stats of all your other weapons by a massive amount. When it gets maxed out, it becomes 30% down here. So super, super valuable. These used to take a really, really long time, potentially years to fully unlock, but now there's a lot easier way to do them. You can go to the bingos and you can complete all these bingo missions, and you should be able to get pretty far in the Zenos gear awakening pretty fast. You just have to do a bunch of random quests. Same thing with the defense gear. When you are awakening this Zenos defense gear, you will be able to protect yourself against unis, which is super valuable. So these protect you against unison attacks, and the Great Spirit is the matching, and then there's an animation when you match two colors, that damage as well. So if you want to survive from unis and you want bigger gear score numbers and dealing more damage, Zenos gear is the most important gear. Don't wait to start on this gear. It's super, super valuable. All right, the seventh thing that I wish that I had known is that dual scaling abilities always do more damage. Most basic move, I'm gonna go to one of my favorites of all time, Dual Sword. It uses attack and defense. Anything that scales off of 2 stats, so attack and defense, magic attack, magic defense, attack and magic attack, and defense and magic defense, if it uses a combination of your stats, it will always do more damage. Especially for PvE, you should always have dual scaling moves on. The 8th thing that I wish that I had known when I first started playing was the difference in the 3 different types of abilities. So this ability does not pierce either nulls or invulnerability, and it doesn't pierce damage reduction or damage reflection. It just hits. So this is a non-piercing move. There are piercing moves. This one penetrates, damage reduction, and damage reflection. So this is for PvP when you're getting attacked. If I proc something that, if somebody hits me with this move, with Rage Slash, and I proc something that reduces damage taken or reflects damage taken, those abilities aren't going to protect me at all. They're not going to reduce the incoming damage by anything. They're not going to do anything to protect me against this incoming damage. Now there is another type of ability that nullifies, that penetrates nullification and invulnerability. So in that case, if I proc a nullification, something like this, that would nullify damage, if it penetrates my nullification, then if my null procs, I'm still going to take maximum damage from that move. It's not going to do anything for me. So when I first started playing the game, when you go into PvP, you can die really easily. This is why, because you need a good combination of null procs and damage reduction or damage reflection procs in order to protect you from the wide variety of attacks. Now, if an attack, for example, like this one, does not penetrate anything, don't expect to do any damage unless there has been a monster thrown that applies some kind of piercing. So for example, this one applies Kijin. Kijin gives you piercing. Permits piercing through damage reduction, damage reflection, and nullification, which means that if I try to attack somebody with Kijin on, no defense proc is going to protect you against those attacks. So just keep that in mind when you're in Colosseum. There are 3 different types of attacks, and they're like rock, paper, scissors with each other. The 9th thing that I wish that I had known is how valuable the elemental advantage is. I made an entire video on the elemental advantage because it's so important. But when you're making your gear sets, make sure that you have all of your gear is suited to what you're fighting. So for example, I'm fighting Star, so I've got all time gear on, because if you go back to this, time beats Star. And for my monsters, I also have tons of monsters. All of them, or almost all of them, give me bonus time elemental advantage. And I have my pets are all time pets. All of them are time. All of the aliens give you 1 element. And so if you have 5 of them, that's 5 extra element. The last thing is the synergy skills. When you're going into your weapons, you can get extra elemental advantage against certain colors. That's a basic rundown, but if you want a full rundown on how to make a proper PvE set, I made an entire video on it because it is so important. The 10th thing that I wish that I'd known is how to properly spend money. So in most games, the more money that it costs to buy the pack, the better the deal for how many gems you'll get per dollar spent. That is not the case in Unison League. Let me repeat that. That is not the case. If you spend fewer dollars, you get a better gem to dollar ratio on average. For example, the best one is the $1. You get 3 gems for $1. The top one here is not even close to that. It's like 2.25 gems per dollar. So you want to make sure that you're doing your math correctly. I believe this one and the 10 gem are some of the best ones, or sorry, the $10 one, this one are some of the best ones. And then getting the Limamin bag, this one is also excellent because you get 3 gems per dollar. So when you're spending money, or if you are spending money, spending less money is often a better deal than spending more money. So it's advised that if you are going to be spending money, to be spending a small amount of money per week or per month in order to slowly build up your gems, as opposed to buying tons and tons of gems all at once, because you're going to be getting a better deal over time spending money on the smaller packs. And as a bonus, 11th thing that I wish that I had known is how useless fishing is in this game. I'm not talking about the legendary fishing. Legendary fishing is actually super valuable. I'm talking about communal fishing. Communal fishing does nothing. Alrighty, so that's pretty much all for today. I'll see you guys in the next one.